Most people believe clarity comes from having control. A stable environment, predictable inputs, and the time to think all create a sense that decisions will be clear when they matter. But the moments that actually define decisions are usually the ones where control disappears. Physical safety starts to feel uncertain, information becomes fragmented, and emotions move faster than logic. At the same time, the systems people rely on for orientation, news, social media, constant updates, are not designed to support clarity. They are designed to hold attention, often by amplifying urgency and reaction. So the question is not how to stay informed. It is how to stay clear when everything around you is optimized to make you react. Welcome to Vision Voices podcast. This is a podcast for founders and leaders navigating complexity with context, not noise. And I'm your host, Lara. Today's conversation is about what happens when assumption of safety shifts and how people, families, and organizations either lose clarity or build it under pressure. My guest on this episode has spent years of working in high-pressure conflict environments across different countries, and nowadays he helps people to handle difficult conversations with more clarity and self-awareness. Welcome, Kline.
Thank you.
So when I was researching your profile, your public profile, I've noticed that your pages, your professional pages, are named Conflict Coach. And also, your public profile stays your next hostage negotiator. Could you elaborate a little bit about what it means and how it defines the work that you're doing now?
So, what it means is that I had to make a big decision. I had to make a decision to come out from behind the shadows because since 2008, I was never on social media. I was not in the public limelight, period, because that's the type of work I did. I went into international security. And in order to shift my narrative when I'm in international security, that needs to be clean skin. What I mean by that is that every day I can show up as someone different. Now, coming into the public limelight was tough, really tough. And it was a big decision because that meant that now there is a profile out there that someone can profile me. So yes, I am someone who has done hostage negotiation. I am classically trained in hostage negotiation and crisis negotiation. And this is why I switched it into conflict, because quite often when you have a conflict, that is your crisis. It might be an incident to me, but it's a crisis to you. It's your emotions that are there. And it's my job to help you through that, to get you out the other side in a way that brings you home to a reality that you want. So this is how kind of conflict coach comes about.
So I've got a question. Say, when people feel that something is no longer fully safe, but not clearly unsafe either, what breaks first? The thinking, the behavior, or the relationship?
Well, this is a really interesting question because it's about perspective. Is it about you or is it about me? This is where it first shifts. So it's more about how you regulate yourself in those moments of tension.
So I would like to start with the context. In places like Dubai, I mean, there's an assumption that it is 100% safe. What happens when people lose that assumption of the stability fully? So what happens and how can that be navigated?
So when it comes to this, it's about structures. They lose their structure. So then they start to spiral slightly. And when they spiral, they look for a new type of structure. And quite often that's emotive. So it goes from pre-planned to reflexive. Reflexes can only be for so long before they get tiring. And as you become more tired, you become more task focused opposed to relationship focused, which then shifts you to being not as communicative, not as respectful, not as at ease with the situation you're around. Now, the other thing is there is a disconnect with context.
Yeah.
Like, I've lived in this region and I haven't lived in the holiday areas of this region. And it is a lot more difficult. There is a lot less in the cupboard in many of these places. So to be in Dubai, we're extraordinarily lucky. That sense of safety is a product of a lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
And now that it's slightly destabilized, I remember just the other day, a collective groan where I was living. There was I was outside, there was so many people, and there was a collective groan. Why? Because there was another alert. And you could see people automatically start shifting back. And that tick that people had of like, is the situation going to become less safe again? Are we going to live through that entire experience that we have lived through? But we haven't had another alarm since that day. We're going to look at it through being avoiding, being dismissive, or we're going to collaborative. And these are the types of people that we start to see because we go into our limbic mode, meaning we go backwards in time to a part where we have a structure. And because of the way that we think, we only have a certain amount of bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a problem. It's like we have a certain amount of bandwidth. And if we don't use that bandwidth in the right way, things go haywire. Much like people leaving. So some people left. That's normal. There's always people who are going to leave, but it's the perception of how you left. Whether you evacuated, whether you put a pause, whether you relocated. Those three words have very different connotations.
Absolutely. How do people come to these scenarios?
Yeah, so this gets really tough for some people. So some people find a structure. Most people don't. Most people are like, oh, yeah, it's time to go because I feel unsafe. Well, throughout your life, you probably felt unsafe at certain points. Did you run away? No, you stayed. When you start to build a structure in of like, okay, if there is X, say like for an example, if there is 5 missile strikes within my area, yeah, it's probably time to leave. I feel uncomfortable. Or there has been 10 drones in the last 3 weeks in my specific area and 2 have hit something. I'm going to feel uncomfortable. These are creating a structure of how much risk you are actually willing to take before you decide to shift. But then you've got like other things that are also going to enter that calculus, like school, like food, like work. So many people have left because there's no work in specific industries. That's okay. Dubai is one of those places. They bounce back. Everybody will flood back. It's they have this amazing way of recouping.
Why does panic often comes from, is it from lack of preparation? Is it from lack of mental strength? So where does it come from?
It's definitely not lack of mental strength because even the most strong people panic. It's how you show up during the panic that's very different for some people.
Interesting. If you could elaborate on that.
100%. I'd love to elaborate. So when it comes to showing up under panic, you need to have a structure in place. Firstly, you need to have an internal structure as well as an external structure. How are you going to regulate on the inside? Because even right now, what is my next words? How am I going to show up? What am I going to say to you that's going to excite you? That's all the internal stuff going on. That monologue. Do you really want that monologue to be there? How do you turn your monologue off at the right time?
And what does it depend on?
2 things. Breathing and acceptance.
Yes.
But I love to pause. See, the thing is that I choose my tempo. And as you choose your tempo of communication, That then sets a tone. It sets a rhythm. That panic is no longer panic. That's momentum. That's where that shift is. We change that from just energy to shifting it to an actual direction.
Could you elaborate a little bit on that part, so on that journey of what's going on with these spikes when you normalize things, but then you get into adrenaline mode again when something new happens? And I also would like you to take another example of a typical Dubai resident is the mother who is supposed to take care of her own safety and also thinking about the kids. Most probably, because I've got a huge network of mothers. I'm a mother myself, and I'd be interested to, to create some value out of this particular part of the conversation with, first of all, understanding. It could be a totally different reaction when it comes to a female, especially in the mother role. And is this panic? Is this fear? Is this, we're all different.
Firstly, thanks for being a mom. I'm so glad I'm a dad. We have a different set of thresholds for risk, for what we need to do. It's the context we live in and the constructs that we find ourselves in. You're going to protect the most important thing. And that is your child. Completely, 100% accepting of that. It's not you, it's your child. Well, there's also another party in that. That is the dad. How's he going to show up? Is he going to be an action-orientated person, or is he going to be a relational-orientated person? Comes into emotional intelligence right here. The more emotional intelligence you can build, the more collaborative you're going to get. And the outcome of that is that you're going to think faster because you're going to have a team of people. You're not going to be isolated. When it comes to mums, I can't speak. I'm not a mum. But I can make some assumptions. And hopefully they don't create problems. Let's see.
I can give you my examples of,
I would love that.
Yeah, about some of my reactions, and I'll be honest with you. As much as I am quite a resilient person, I've always been quite strong. Been living in Dubai for the past 16, 17 years.
Represent.
I mean, when something like that happens, I'll be honest with you, I found myself that I'm quite difficult with losing. How do I take under control? Because I've got two little humans that I need to protect. Do I have enough resources myself to protect them? Do I have enough resources to act quickly when I really need to? And I think that was the moment when I was a bit lost.
Well, you had a realization. You're not in control.
Exactly.
So at that point, when you're not in control, you need to find things you can be in control of. There's only one thing that I know that you can be in control of. That's you and how you show up. Now, you can firstly look at the situation. What areas can you take control of? Okay, I can think. I have that. I can make sure that my babies are safe for the next 10 minutes. Within that 10 minutes, come up with your first game plan. What are you going to do? Okay, all right. So I need to get prepared for the next time this might happen. Because right now, I'm not prepared at all. I'm scrambling. Emotionally, I'm all over the place. But I can't let my two little beautiful human beings know that, right? You can't let them know that.
Yes.
But I think it's also that not everything is going to be okay. It's also accepting that it might not be okay. And it's that acceptance that you can manage whatever's going to happen. If you choose to let yourself not believe that you cannot come to the table on that day, you won't. But you're here today. You chose to come. You came to the table every single day. You took control of the situation you could. I'm sure that you asked your partner and lent on him and vice versa in order to get through that in different ways. Sure, What's really interesting about conflict that I love is that you actually get to meet your partner head on.
That's right.
And it's at that point when you meet your partner head on, you're like, holy shit, who is this person? Because this is where you are forming your team. You're going through norming, forming, storming, and performing. And you're doing it under the watch of some really big pressure, and also two people, or in my case, one person. And as you go through that, you start to realize that, hey, there's a lot of communication that needs to happen that isn't happening. And then there is this historical factor where you have minimized psychological safety between you and your partner. So then that communication is a little bit more gritty. So you have to do extra work on top of what is already happening. So you already have got this whole amount of decision making that is happening. And then you've got your partner coming in that you're like, they have a different agenda to you. And then you have to work on compromising. What's firstly going to happen is you're going to argue.
Me and my partner, we've got totally different reactions to the same situation when it comes to physical safety.
So let me
Definitely.
guess. Let me guess. So one of you is going to be more on the argumentative side. One of you is going to be more on the avoiding side.
My partner is totally like you described one of your clients
Yeah.
who has been actually distancing himself. My partner actually says it's safe. I mean, nothing wrong is going on. And I'm on a totally different side. But I mean, so what would be your recommendations to the families in this situation? How to get that reassurance?
Okay, so let's put a structure around that. So we're going to look at task first, relationship first. That's simple. Okay, are we going to focus on the relationship or are we going to focus on the task? At the time when shit is going really bad, focus on the task. Personalities need to step aside. Then once the heavy lifting is done, let's then start looking at the relationship. So at that point when things are heavy, you're going to be very aggressive because you want to get that done. That's the momentum. That's what drives us as human beings. If we don't care about the task, we're going to go and avoid. And we're going to be like, it's okay. Relationship is now low at this point. Now we're going to be high relationship. This is where people become apathetic and they're like, it's mañana, tomorrow, it's fine, everything's fine. Or they can shift up into a much more collaborative experience. But it's within those 4 areas that someone's going to show up. And it's your job as part of a unit being your family, that you communicate and you move through this to get to that collaborative format. The problem is that a lot of people fall short.
Yeah.
They fall short because they're like, this is hard. Yeah, it's really hard to have conflict. It's really hard to show up every day. That's why it takes work to be in a relationship. What the cool part is that conflict will never die. Don't believe in resolution. It's management. It's conflict management between you and another person. But that's where the energy is. That's where life is. It's in that area. So as you show up with your partner and you realize that they're in a different place, that is amazing because now you've already realized they're in a different place to you. Your job is to show up and say how you are and to get them to see you as you. That's all you can do. And then the other side of it is to use your active listening skills to be like, hey, I see that you don't think anything's going on. That's true. In many aspects, that's true. But in this way, there is something going on. And it's making me worried. And this is why it's making me worried. Do you see why it could make me worried? And they have an option there. They can be argumentative and say, no, there's nothing. Or they can step up and they'd be like, whoa, I see that this is tough for you. How can we make that easier? And this is where it's team back and forth. And if you are a team that needs help, that's all about communication. That's all about letting go of some of those historical issues and showing up on that day when things are going a little bit haywire.
I believe that is the only way how at least to get the family situation under control. So how do we get this under control as a society? Meaning as a community of Dubai and Abu Dhabi residents whose assumptions of safety have shifted on the 28th of February. And we have all sorts of people with all different reactions, and we zoomed into a family conflict, but I would like to look at it as the community of residents now, this scale. So how do we get that under control? And I would like to make a disclaimer. I think Dubai leadership has taken a great effort to bring the safety situation to a maximum control so that we could feel as residents absolutely safe here, no matter what was going on. So that's the disclaimer. But tell me on the mental, psychological basis, how this can get into a certain structure when things are happening.
Well, I think that you hit it on the head, which is there is a sense of safety here. While on the 28th of February, things may have shifted. In 2016, I was in another country, and there was a bombardment going on, literally outside the residence compound I was living in, daily, for a year. Everything was destroyed. I could hear dogs eating people outside. There was a bomb blast when I was working and I got thrown forward. None of that has happened here. The context is safe in comparison to many other places in this world, and we forget how much safety we have. We take it for granted. While we do not know everything that is going on, we have some of the best minds in the world in this country. Why? Because of the way that the leadership works here. It outsources. It understands that, hey, we can take talent from outside, invest here. That's why how many catastrophic incidents did Dubai have? Did Abu Dhabi have? Realistically, very, very few. Considering the amount of devastation that was thrown our way, no. The country stood up. Did the country retaliate with aggression? Yes, but smartly. It took its time. It thought about the ways to create a perception of safety, because that's all it is. It's perception. The whole world is based on a perception and an acceptance that if I behave, the rest of the world will behave. Well, unfortunately, some people are bad actors and they misbehave. So for our country, the country we live in, the country we chose to be in, we left another country because of the perception that there was more opportunity somewhere else. It's true, there is more opportunity here. When it comes to our sense of safety, what I find ironic is that when you think of Australia, go swimming in the sea, the ocean, first thing you think of, sharks.
Of course.
When you get onto a plane and there's turbulence, what's the first thing you think of?
I'm very bad with turbulence, I'll be honest with you.
There you go. You're like, I'm out of control. The plane is going to crash. Well, here, when you get into a car, do you think, oh, I'm just going to go down the road and everything's fine? Yes. The reality is that that's actually more dangerous. And statistically, since many people left, it was actually safer in Dubai. There was less people who had incidents in Dubai. So it is about thinking more holistically of the reality and not being myopic about the single incident. Because sharks exist. Aeroplanes do crash. We do live in a society that is fragile, but it is resilient. And it's that resilience that we should stand behind and see. And if we fail to see the resilience, that is because we are going limbic and we are looking for reasons to cling on to. Hence why some people love social media, because they get that fix. They go, okay, scroll. The world is how I see it. That makes me feel comfortable. That makes me feel assured. I feel safe in my little bubble. Even though my bubble says that the world is unsafe, this proves that it's unsafe. Now I have a context that I can follow. So, for all the people out there that are believing that it's not safe, what are you doing? How are you living? Do you feel that it is safe the majority of the time? That's when you're on autopilot for many people. And it's that failure to turn off autopilot and to just take a breath of air and be like, wow, there is food. Everything is relatively fine. There is very little crime. Go and play in England, in London for the night. That's dangerous. Come here. Go down to JBR. Hang out for the evening. Go home. You can walk home at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to have a problem. It's going to be a little bit hot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have a problem. And it's that perception of where you sit with your risk. Sure, the likelihood is now a little bit higher. The impact has always been really significant. But the fact is that that likelihood is still not very high in comparison to other countries within this region. In comparison to this greater region, you just need to look at the statistics. Numbers don't lie.
I mean, people tend to choose, different sources of information to keep themselves informed and to get themselves different points of proof. So you mentioned social media, which is designed to keep people engaged. And what I find, it is more natural for people to engage with alarming and negative information. So what would be your recommendation about the usage of social media, even the reliable sources, as we say it, right?
Yeah. So I need to check you here.
Yeah.
And it's only because, within what I've studied over the years, one of the areas is intelligence and how to think differently. You have information. Great. No, you have data. You have pieces of data, and those data need to be transferred into information. That information then needs to be transferred into actionable outcomes. Most people just skip that data part, go straight to information, as you said, and rightly so. So if you start looking at information as data points, take a step back. They're just data points. And then pick the data that is reliable. Pick the data that is triangulable. What I mean by triangulable is that you can see it in multiple places from reliable sources that you feel that have trust. And if that source becomes a little less trustable, get rid of it. It's not serving your purpose. This comes to the next part. Once you have data, information, then actionable outcomes, you also need to work out what are your actionable outcomes. If you're just collecting to collect, it doesn't help. I had thousands of lines of data come through, mapping it all out on a map. The outcome of all of that was that I just needed to get some humanitarians from one spot to another and understand what was happening during that area. What concerned me more was when I didn't have any incidents in that area. That meant that there was a lack of data. So too many people are focused on having too much data.
Yeah.
Should be the other way around. Be concerned when you don't have any information. Be concerned when you don't have any data. So as we go through this process, we need to work out the data, the information, and then the actionable outcomes. If you know what your actionable outcomes are, then you can start to pick what you want to research. So you can go into doing a PESTLE assessment. So a PESTLE assessment, you can look that up, but basically it gives you different areas within your society to understand how your society is functioning.
And let's be specific. Let's just give a few examples of how you can pick the points of data that you specifically need for your specific case.
What's your specific case?
Let's say I am a typical Dubai resident
Mm-hmm.
with 2 kids, a house, and a job,
Mm-hmm.
and a plans to stay in this country as long as I can, grow up my kids here.
Okay.
Also, my assumptions of safety,
Mm.
physical safety shift.
Mm-hmm.
What specific data points that I need that might help you to react or to keep the clarity?
Okay.
Let's use the word clarity in this
To
case.
keep clarity.
Yes.
Okay. So to keep clarity, are the schools opened? Are they functional? Because that is about your kids. That's a primary concern of yours. You mentioned it earlier.
Absolutely.
Next, looking at your job. What's your industry? How is your industry handling this? Are some of your friends leaving? Are some of your friends saying, hey, this is not working out so well at the moment. I need more people around. This is signals coming in that you can start to decide. Look at the real estate market. What's happening there? Is everything on pause? Or is everything starting to pick back up? Has anything shifted? Is there a devaluation? That's another area. Then going into food. Am I still going to the same restaurants or not? Okay. You're looking at life quality. You break your life quality down into the areas that make your life nice. And you work out how much less nice you want your life before you need to go somewhere else. You've done it before, you just didn't do it in a structured way, most likely. When you did it last time, you were like, okay, I'm going to come to Dubai. I don't really know too much about the country, but I'm just going to make it here. For whatever reason, you shifted, you come here. So you've done it once, you can do it again. But this time, don't leave. Make an educated decision about all the little data points that you can put together to then create some information. Then come to the table with your significant other and be like, this is what I've got. Now, don't expect that your significant other has got that same because you have blindsided them. At this point, you'd be like, this is what I've got, and this is where I'm sitting. Can you help me to work out how we can come together on this? So it's at this point, and it's even in the workplace. I've had to evacuate people from different countries, sadly, and that whole crisis management aspect, well, there's no difference between a crisis internally, a crisis between people, a crisis in an organization. There's no difference.
Interesting.
There's no difference because just think about it. You have think about a board of people that are sitting around a table. You have them in your head too. You have them all talking. You've got to get them all on board with what's going on. And you have one guy at the end. That's your executive function. That's up here. And then you've got all your parts of your limbic system and your brachial and all different areas within your brain. So as you are standing up the front, stating your position, hey, it's now become unsafe, we need to leave. And you have all different conversations. The outcome is that you need to get a consensus. Otherwise, you have cognitive dissonance, being confused. So it is bringing everybody onto the table, whether it be a metaphoric table or a real table, and then saying, okay, this is what my plan is based on all of the inputs, because it's a team. You don't want to do it alone. Don't do it alone. Because if you do it alone, you're just there with one person at the table. You don't have all the people. And that means that you have all these different inputs. You'll make a better decision. Statistically, science proven.
So let's. I would like to zoom in because you keep on referring to a limbic system and the way our brain is developed to react to different situations.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, let's talk about types of safety and the way our limbic system is designed to react. So we're talking safety, we're talking physical safety, we're talking emotional safety, we're talking about mental safety.
Mm-hmm.
And when the conflict is happening, whether it is internal or external, I understand from what you're saying, it works the same way.
That's a great paraphrase. So it does. Now, when we talk about those three types of safety, psychological, physical, and mental, if you don't have one of those, you're going to be standing on one foot. Things are going to get rough. So physical safety, it's a no-brainer, right? You're either fully functional or you're not. Then you have emotional safety, whether I can voice what I am feeling. Then you have mental safety, whether I feel safe within inside myself. So it's those three elements that need to come together. And that's where emotional intelligence is very important in any type of crisis, any type of incident. So whether it be a Dubai resident, whether it be a government, whether it be an organization, you have these different parameters because an organization also has a reputation.
And so, what is the ideal scenario that we would want to have as individuals or as teams when it comes to safety? What is the ideal scenario of the reaction of the structure that we would want to come to?
I can remember being in different crises and notice the difference. There's incidents, there's crises, and there's complete disaster. So I have been in different crises and had to show up day in, day out, day in, day out, but I had a plan. And I made that plan known. It's the day that I showed up at home, that's when it got problematic because I wasn't expecting to have crises follow me. This is the 5th conflict that I've been in. And this one's been the hardest. And the reason that this one's been the hardest is because I've had loved ones inside the theater of action. And what was cool was that over the past years, me and my partner have talked about our structure, our sense of safety, because of all of my experiences. She automatically went and got shopping. She automatically got the bags ready. She automatically did this. It wasn't a matter of who's doing what when. It was like, this is what I can do to contribute. This is how I can control my situation. This is how I can make it safer for me and my baby, because obviously she's focused on the baby. My job is to focus on her then. So, and then that's how that team orchestrates. So it is very much about dealing with crisis. It is very much about dealing with the family situation or the work situation, but it's knowing how your team operates under pressure as well as in smooth sailing times. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And I think the recent, for example, developments when it comes to schools, for example, here in Dubai, I think they've made a tremendous effort and a great job on training the staff on how to react in case of intersections happening during the school hours. And they also did multiple drills with the kids, which ended up being a lot more constructive and calm and more sort of contributing to their own safety than in a lot of families, I think. We pretty much zoomed into the initial reaction. So what happens next?
Wow, that's really tricky. So this is a tricky stage.
Right.
So because your limbic system is already pre-exposed and you have developed stronger synapses within your brain, like neural networks, they become stronger and they become more reinforced with more emotion. Now, I don't want to get into those kind of details, but what the outcome of that is that it becomes a quicker uptake in stress quite often with people.
What does that mean?
That means that your limbic system is easier triggered. So as your limbic system becomes easier to be triggered, it's much like what many people experienced the other day when there was notifications come through.
Exactly. I was referring to that particular day, actually.
So
Yes.
that's exactly what happened. So many people just went double breath and you're like, okay. But that double breath is actually really important because that is a psychological sigh. And if you do a psychological sigh, that tells your stomach, hey, everything's okay. And it actually regulates you. Now, what happened with many people is that they automatically went, okay, is this going to be problematic? What do I need to do? And they have gone flooded back because they have this whole, like, think about it like you have this whole highway of experiences for the past 2 months. Now, all of those are very recent. So you have recency bias, which plays within the amygdala. So you have these recency biases that sit there and you're like, okay, this is what happened last time, this and this and this and this, tick, 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 tick. Okay, I am here now. Is that where I want to be? But if you take a pause and understood what happened that night through social media, through safe social media, let's make it very clear, through reliable sources, and you got data, and you're like, okay, this data suggests that there is an uptake for today. Let's look at what happens tomorrow.
Exactly, yes.
But it is those people who say, okay, this happened today. I want to see what happens tomorrow and whether there is a pattern and a trend that is starting to form. And to look at the trends and patterns, because that's how we make reason. The sad fact is that a lot of us are like ChatGPT. We put in data,
Yeah.
but that data isn't actually quite like what we need.
Accurate, yes. So we're just putting some reaction into that, and then we're expecting some rational reaction out of there.
But it's not, because it's a pattern. It looks at
Totally.
your pattern and then gives you back a pattern that fits your pattern.
Yeah.
So this is where pattern recognition is extraordinarily important. As you start to build up a scenario, you go back to your risk assessment, you go again, and you start to then build up, hey, you know what? That was just a bleep. It was just a hiccup in the matrix. And then you can start to move through that and be like, okay, I'm at a yellow stage where things could potentially kick off again. Where am I going to be? What am I going to do? How am I going to explain this to my kids? What do I need to engage with my partner? All of these things. And that's the same in the work environment.
Yeah.
You would do the same thing. Okay, how do I talk to the logistics department? What do I need to do with the human resources? How am I going to do this with the PR section? What is the CEO going to be? What's his stance? All of these things are no different. Humans are overcomplicating their own systems by not coming back to themselves.
I'm trying to sort of apply this statement to a particular situation of safety. For example, to coming back to yourself in the moment when in the moment of the safety shift, let's say, which means reassuring yourself that you've already gone through. You know you have the structure. You have the structure in place that you can follow that allows you to proactively assess the situation rather than to go into a panic mode. Am I right or wrong?
100%. And you're comfortable about doing it because you've done it before. This is not new territory. This is territory that is shifting, and it gives you more data into what you've already started to build inside your mental model. So it actually provides you more reassurance that, hey, I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
I'm able to manage this situation better because I've been through it once or twice before.
So I'd like to probably zoom a little bit more into the attention economy and the social media and the information, the data point, because it is also quite relevant to the conversations that I usually have on this podcast, and they're all related to to the content, to how narratives, obviously the public narratives, are actually work and how they are designed to keep us all engaged. So how would you recommend again to get those data points? I mean, assess those facts. You mentioned that they need to be relevant to your situation. Is this enough for me as a mother to only rely on whether the school is open or closed? I mean, there's obviously an element of everyone's capacity towards trust, right? Okay, do I rely only on this? Do I rely on the Facebook groups or on, WhatsApp chats where people are sharing some sorts of different pieces of data, let's say? So how do we deal with that? Is this enough? Or do I inform myself? Do I educate myself a bit more? And how do I do that in the more constructive way, let's say?
Well, when you were talking, at a moment, I was cringing about the mother chats,
Yeah.
because there is fear and panic in there. A lot of fear and panic. And that is emotional data that I don't feel in control. You can pick that up and also feel that way. But you can see how other people are reacting. That doesn't mean you choose to react that way. That's a data point. Then you have social media. You have certain narratives that are saying, hey, everything is fine. Then you have other ones that are going, everything is chaotic. Oh my God. Look for the norm. Normalize that. Rationalize that yourself. Make those educated decisions, not just based on the mother's group, not just based on the social media group or the WhatsApp, the Telegram, the different media outlets that are also have their own narrative and their own ways of sending out messages. What is your message? Think about it. How are you wanting to show up in your own way? What are you sending out to the world? Yeah, sure. Your focus is on the kids, right? For the mothers, it's focused on the kids, but it's also not just focused on how the schools are. It's focused on whether the kids are having activities, whether the kids are engaged, whether they emotionally feel safe, whether the food is the same as before, or whether you're having to buy different products, whether your husband is working remotely or whether he's back at the office. All of these different data points then give you a narrative to make your choices. Because at the end of the day, it's your choice. You can drink the Kool-Aid and just put your head in the sand. And this is where I talk about time traveling. Too many people are time traveling. They're too far in the future projecting what will be, or they're too far in the past being sad about what happened. Well, if you take all of the information and the data that's coming in, and at that point you just put it there and you sit it in front, and then you start to pick your narrative based on how you would like to show up, your best educated guess, because even the world's best strategic analysts are still guessing.
Of course.
So that was one thing that I was reminded of, because obviously I'm not in a position of knowing everything or knowing a lot of things at the moment. I know very little. And then I was reminded by somebody who is still in that industry, hey, you only know a little bit. Accept what you know and work with what you have. And that ambiguity that you have, that is your best weapon. That is your abilities to show up the next day and just accept that things are safe enough for now.
I think that's the foundation for, building the structure. Where is the balance between, when you're doing the right thing and when you're probably overreacting?
Yeah. What was really fascinating was that I was here and that I was also at the shops. I was collecting data on what other people are doing. And I actually did my shopping before everybody else did. I already knew that people were going to react kind of weird, kind of emotionally, let's say. So what I did was that I looked in my pantry and I'm like, what do I need for the next month and a half in case something went bad? And I'm like, I need some rice, I need some flour, I need some lentils, and I need some chocolate. It's very important to also have good things in your pantry during times of crisis. Whenever you need a hit of dopamine, it should be there in your pantry.
So is it something to sort of helping you to come over a stressful moment, to sort of your limbic system to get a piece of chocolate or like some hot chocolate to drink of?
Yeah, it is something nice. Like I can remember when I flew into a war zone, I would always have a like a couple of boxes of chocolate. Some of
What
those,
does it help to do?
some of those are bribes. Let's face it. But then some of those others are just a nice moment to take a mental break. You think about it, having a chocolate gives you a mental break as it melts in your mouth and the feeling and the velvet, and it gives you that sense of just release and calmness. So it's really important to get all the basics, sure, because you don't know what's going to happen,
Mhm.
because you don't understand how prepared this country was. It's super prepared
Yeah.
in comparison to so many countries. I was also in California when everybody was buying toilet paper in 2019. Um, that was a lot less prepared, and the world was not prepared. But that frenzy kicked over that entire 300 million people, all fighting over toilet paper and crazy stuff. Whereas here, what I saw was much more orderly. But it is important to have your basics.
So, Klein, let's recap what we have discussed today. So, we basically we spoke about incident versus crisis. We spoke about different types of safety: physical, emotional, and mental safety. We spoke about different human reactions and the community reactions that are shifting under pressure. We spoke about family conflicts and the importance of working collaboratively and building that team under pressure. We spoke about how this logic can be applied to business and organizations, and most importantly, we spoke about that particular word structure that keeps that clarity regardless whether the conflict is internal or external organization, or is it let's say some geopolitical conflict. So all these things somehow we covered today in the conversation. As we're wrapping up this conversation, I'd like to ask about you. So what is one belief about safety or control that you've changed your mind about?
I came out from behind the shadows, and that was a process. And I had control over everything: the way I sat, the way I talked, the way I read you, the way I interpret how you talk, the level of detail that you go into, where you skip. I had all control. That meant also I had control of what I said, the way that I presented myself, the way that I showed up on the day. The one thing I didn't have control of was me, the actual real me. And in the last 4 years, I have been on a journey of authenticness. And what I learned in the first 2 years about authenticity is it's not enough. You need to have authenticity with emotional intelligence in order to truly sit with yourself and be comfortable. That's where control is. My control in the past was to control my outside world. My control now is about my inside world and how I show up for myself, then to show up for others. So this is where that shift has really happened. And I have found that to be so empowering, to be able to come and sit with you, to be able to come and sit with many different people. Like in the past, I've sat in government offices doing very amazing work. But I think that I've lived more since I've been in Dubai than I have in the 60 countries I've worked in.
That's amazing. No, I think that answer gives a lot to think about, and also an understanding of how complex that journey might be, from controlling external to actually going back to yourself and thinking about what you control within yourself and your state. Second question. What's one signal you used to ignore, but now you recognize early?
Relationships. 100% it's about relationships. In the past, I was extraordinarily task focused, and that was very myopic. What transcended from that is that in the past, when it was related to a relationship, I would see that as a secondary
Mhm.
over getting something done. Problem with that is that to get something done, I had to work twice as hard because I isolated myself. Whereas if I had other people that I built that relationship with, and remember, we're in the Middle East, relationship is king, not the task. It's how you make people feel, not how the outcome is. So it's that shift over to being somebody who is relational first. Once you build the relationship, you can get shit done quicker with less effort. And this is one thing that I didn't know. This is one thing that over the past maybe 15 years, I have been slowly unpacking and trying to get that mentality of where I come from away from me, and to just drop that generational expectation and my cultural expectation, and to shift to somebody who values the relationship, because it really does matter.
So I've got one more question, if you don't mind. What's one decision rule you rely on when clarity is at risk? Just to probably return a little bit back to the topic that we unpacked.
Who is making the decision? That would be how I would come back to it. Which one at my table is making that decision? Is it the inner child that is fearful? Is it the intellect that has so many pieces of paper that, I could build a whole fleet of aeroplanes? Or is it the guy who's been in the field for over a decade that has apathy? Or is it the more robust, realistic, new character, who I like much more, that is making the decision? And then, have I gone and had a consensus? I think that this is where it truly lies. And I guess, if you don't capture that essence, and if you are seeking clarity in a dirty cup, your lenses are broken. Your lenses are what's going to create the problem. So it's looking at all of those different areas to come back and be like, okay, how can I clean my lenses well enough to make the best decision so I show up in the best way possible?
So it's the decision of who's taking the decision in a certain situation. That's what you rely on more and more. And do you agree that it could be a different human being in you and in a different situation who might take the? Do you allow your inner child to take decisions sometimes?
Yes. So this is another really interesting point. I put up barriers. We have barriers. We didn't talk about barriers today, but barriers are extraordinarily important. So when you have barriers, you have speed bumps, road signs, you have actual lesser blocks, you have brick walls. How do you then put up those barriers? If an inner child is making a decision, you also need to have a caveat there with that inner child, that this decision is because I don't feel safe right now. We need to pause this. We need to come back to this in a couple of days or in a couple of hours when the inner child is left, and then someone else has come and taken the seat again. But it is communicating the where you sit, to allow that other person to also understand the environment that they're working in. Because before, I was very selfish. And that's where that control came in, because nobody could tell what I was thinking because I would be reflecting them, not me. And then I would have the upper hand. It's not very nice when you put it like that, is it? So too many people are holding their cards too tight to themselves because they're fearful that their advantage will slip through. Well, my advantage is authenticity.
What was driving you when you were selfish? What was your main motive to you? Sort of, I mean, obviously you're not perceived as a selfish person right now, but I mean, what do you think was the main driver for you? Why did you choose to be selfish versus authentic?
Well, I was running away. I was running away from a lot of historical problems, a lot of generational trauma, a lot of things that truly haunted me throughout my younger years. And it was through all of that that I became a gray man, a man that you could not see. And I think that that's a lot of people are like that these
Of
days.
course. It's for most of the adulthood, I think, a lot of people.
And when you start to peel back that gray man and take off those masks, that people become very fragile. So if my biggest strength is my fragility, am I fragile? No. That's the big difference. And that's a driving factor from when I was scared, when I was under threat, when I was feeling like an imposter, when I was paid to do a mission that was against what I wanted to do. The outcome of all of that was that I got to see all of those different elements of myself and choose the best one and show up in the best way possible. But that comes back to clarity. That comes back from seeing so many different incidents over my lifetime and accepting that, hey, you're going to get through today. It's going to be okay. And if you can accept okay, you'll accept tomorrow. If you can't accept okay, it's going to be very difficult for you because you're going to want good, you're going to want great, you're going to want fantastic, and it's going to leave you hungry, which means that you're going to feel empty, lost, sad, alone, isolated, all of the things that many people suffer within Dubai.
You can look into the camera, you can ask them for one thing that you want them to do after listening to what you've been sharing here.
If I was to sell you my products, that would completely undermine why I'm here. Why I'm here is to give you some nuggets, to keep you interested, but also to stimulate your curiosity. So if you go away from this being curious and being more interested in who you are, yes, my job is done. Thanks.
That was Kline Martin, conflict coach, ex-hostage negotiator. Now we know everything about that. And yeah, Kline, thank you. What this conversation makes clear is that clarity is not something people find in the moment. It is something they build before the moment. And the most of what people rely on under pressure is not designed to support that. It is designed to keep them engaged. So the shift is simple but not easy, from trying to feel in control through information to building enough structure that you do not depend on. The goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to stay clear enough to protect what matters. Prepared families and businesses are not fear-driven. They're those who have taken the time to think before the pressure arrives.